Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. on a week-to-week basis, looking at 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, and products are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. And as we go and grow to a planet of 9 billion people by 2050, how are we going to be able to take care of all those people and allow them to have an increased quality of life and not just exist? And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who's working on this in many different directions. This is Leonard, and he goes by EnviroBro. And Robertson, he's the host of what's called Green and Sexy Radio Show. We're going to find out what the sexy's all about there, Leonard. And that's WERA 96.7 FM in Arlington, right here in the Northern Virginia area of the United States. And welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. Been looking forward to this for a while.
Well, we're glad to have you here. I'm a big fan. And well, you're doing absolutely fantastic, and I love this title, the Green and Sexy Radio Show. But anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself. You came here from California, and then also about the radio show.
Yes, I came here from California about 3 years ago, basically to retire and watch TV and play golf. But my experience is I had 40 years experience in the environmental field. Started out working in hazardous waste facilities, hazardous waste landfills. I did a little bit of engineering. I had my own company. Then I ended up as an environmental manager at a steel mill in California. California's only steel mill. So
that is incredible to hear that California had steel mill, because you think of all that heavy industry being, in Detroit or Birmingham, Alabama somewhere, but you don't really think about California.
Well, we consider ourselves the best steel mill in California.
Got it.
But yeah.
As the only steel mill.
And yeah, I reported to about 20 federal, state, and local agencies that really didn't talk to one another, so compliance became an art. Mm-hmm. Well, I did that for about 11 years, and then I get a call from, we changed governors. Arnold Schwarzenegger became our governor. I get a call from his office, and he'd say, he says, hey, you're the manager for the only steel mill in California, and you guys are doing great. We need you to come up to Sacramento to sprinkle some of that magic up here. So he wanted people in his administration that actually had real jobs. It gets no more real than steel.
Yeah, and had real experience as far as environmental compliance,
exactly.
But also anticipating how you're going to be able to protect and clean the environment before it even happens. And I think that's what you're actually saying you're trying to do.
And make a profit. And make money,
a profit
too.
At the same time.
Make money, the other green.
Right.
And so I got appointed to Chief Deputy Director of the Department of Toxic Substances Control, which is a division of the California Environmental Protection Agency. And I stayed there until, for 2 terms. He finished 1 term, he got reelected. And then when he termed out, I said, okay, well, this is in the road for me. Mm-hmm. We got Jerry Brown again as governor, and he appointed me as director of the department again.
That is absolutely incredible. What a background you have. That's absolutely fantastic. Now, going back to what we see here, we've got your logo here as far as the Green and Sexy. Tell us a little bit, why are you calling the show Green and Sexy?
Well, if I just called it green, I'd be preaching to the choir. Champions such as yourself, everybody gets it. But there's a big bell curve of people that want to protect the environment, but they're busy paying student loans, raising kids, paying mortgages, living life. And they want to do the right thing, they just don't have the time to dedicate. So I call it sexy to get their attention. When you put sexy on anything, beer commercials say if you drink enough beer, women in bikinis will follow you.
Right.
And actually, all you're going to get is a DUI. Mm-hmm. Women, if you wear this cologne, you look like Beyonce. Mm-hmm. So sexy sells. So if they can do that for consumer products, why can't I do that for the environment?
Well, you've done it. I think it's fantastic. And this is really a great logo because you can see here it's high energy. You got the microphone because you're on radio, and you got the earphones, and then you're on WERA, so you've got this all together, and thank you for sharing that with us. Where does the EnviroBro actually come from, and why such a unique name, and how does that allow you, just like the Green and Sexy, how does this unique name that you have allow you to really more firmly connect with the public?
Couple things. Remember when internet first came out, email first came out, they said, okay, use your email address to say something about yourself. Well, I said, okay, I'm in the environment and I want to identify as a bro. So I said EnviroBro. So it was EnviroBro at Prodigy, then EnviroBro at CompuServe, then EnviroBro at AUL. Then I finally stopped at Hotmail because that was free.
Right.
And you can tell us baby boomers because we stick with Hotmail and Yahoo. You know, some of us going to Gmail, but I just put the two names together to make an email address to identify myself. But it caught on. Anytime I want to get that name for anything, nobody else ever has that name. So it says what I do, what I want to do.
Well, I like this too, and the fact is that you're promoting all the time. When you came into the studio, you actually had your green and sexy hat on, and you use that all the time. So what are some of the other things that you're doing as far as really promoting the radio program itself, but again, as really connecting with the public so that you can activate them, they can learn about what's going on, and at the same time they can feel good about what they're contributing to the environment, to their family, and to the local community, which is in Arlington.
Well, the key is to take this environmental information and make it culturally, socially, economically relevant to the listening audience. In other words, what would climate change mean to a mom with 3 kids? What does a green job mean to a guy that's been laid off after 30 years at the same company and retraining? So it's making it relevant and saying, you know, basically the same thing it tells in voting, it's the power of one. You can make a difference. So I want to empower people to make a difference.
So looking at the work that you've done over all these years, and of course you explained about being in California, you worked your way up through the various administrations, you became one of the leaders, or maybe the leader, as far as protecting the environment within California, but also having this delicate balance, which is like Emerald Planet, between the economy and the environment. But why did you, now that you went into retirement, you've come back out, and you're really probably working harder than you ever did when you were doing full-time work,
That's
but
right.
focusing on the environment. Why not something else?
Well, you know, it comes from my core that my parents instilled in me. They always said, leave your room in better condition when you leave than it was when you got there. So I decided to make my community, my state, my environment, my room. And it's really hard to, you stop and then you try to take a break and you just can't, because there's always something else done. As long as my health keeps up and I have the energy, I'm going to continue to do it. And if I can make an impact behind a radio booth, on TV, I'm going to continue to make that difference.
That's the way you want to do it. And people see, one of these days you're going to be in retirement, and I said, the only way I'll do that is when I'm floating with the angels. As long as I'm on Earth, I'm going to be doing something, and probably what we're doing right here, because this is something that's really needed. And just like you have said, you're doubling your efforts, and now as we move forward, and we're doing the same thing. And we actually, if we can, we're even going to triple the number of programs that we're broadcasting. Excellent. And that's the way it's got to be. But looking at some of the green and sexy projects you've been involved in, know about, have influenced, what are some of the top ones that you can remember are going on right now that's really so important, it's having a real positive impact on the environment?
One of my favorites is recycling used oil filters. In California, used oil filters are hazardous waste, but it's a good grade of steel, and there's oil in there. So the oil companies were saying, God, we'd like to have the oil, but we don't want the crappy steel. And we steel industry said, we want this good steel, but we don't want the crappy oil. So the oil industry invested in equipment to drain, crush, and shred and separate the oil. And we took the steel, so we talked the state of California into changing their laws to allow us to take used oil filters. And we have the capacity to take every used oil filter in California because of just the sheer size of our mill. That solved an environmental problem from California. So that was one of my favorites, because I got the state to change the law. Well,
you changed the law, but at the same time, you really added and boosted the economy by doing that, because you keep it out of the landfill. But this has real economic purpose, both from the steel and from the oil itself.
Exactly.
Fantastic. We applaud you. What's the next one?
The second one is called Project Isaiah. We were taking confiscated firearms from law enforcement agencies and melting them down to make rebar. Well, before they used to sell them in auctions, and they'd get back on the street. They needed a complete way to destroy them. So I invited him to bring him out and said, hey, why don't you bring your confiscated firearms here and we'll beat those swords into plowshares. Well, that's a scripture in the Bible. Well, once I called it Project Isaiah, about 50 Southern California law enforcement agencies and then the ATF started bringing their confiscated firearms and we'd melt it down. So we decided to call it Project Isaiah. Now that, that only takes a small part of the illegal guns off the street, but it makes a symbolic gesture. Weapons of destruction into tools of construction.
Yeah, well, and the whole thing about that too, when you're talking about, the swords to plowshares. I mean, this is something that really resonates to people.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter whether you're in a very rural area where you have people with lots of guns out there, you have people in the inner city areas where maybe there's more prohibition as far as having that. People don't want illegal arms and they don't want people that should not have them with those arms. And if you can do something like you're talking about and at the same time demonstrate that this is going into useful products, I mean, that's just a home run for everybody. Do you have a third one that you would like to share before I go to the next question?
We started taking steel belted tire cords. Tire recycling in California, there was an initiative to make asphalt and to make children's play mats out of used tires. But the tire company said, what are we going to do with the steel belted cords? We said we'd take it for free. They offered to pay us to take the steel belted cords.
So it'd be like a tipping fee.
That's right. But then what it did for us, it gave us a source of great steel, because that's a great grade of steel. But then the little pieces of carbon that were left on there, we needed that in the steel to fortify it anyway. So we were getting $1 million worth of free carbon plus free steel. So it was an economic component to that too. I love those projects that either have a big social value or they combine what I call environomics, the environment and economics.
Yeah, I like that term because that's exactly Emerald Planet's all about. That is the the balance between the economics, the environment, but also civil society development, because you're keeping guns, off the streets and all those things. It's a very good thing. We're about out of time, but how can people get involved and feel like they're actually contributing as far as the environment is concerned, and maybe heed the call that you have as far as the Green and Sexy radio show?
Well, I'd love them to listen to the show. We give all kinds of tips on the show on what they can do to protect the environment, like unplugging their charger when their phones are not plugged in, taking incandescents to CFLs, and if you have CFLs, going to to different brands of lights that save energy, being energy conscious, taking public transportation. There's a song that goes, there's 50 ways to leave your lover, but there's hundreds of ways to protect the environment. So if listen to the show, and we help you out.
That's absolutely fantastic. One last question. We got to be quick. We got about 15, 20 seconds. What do you see for the growth and expansion of Green and Sexy radio show over the next, say, 5, 10, 15 years?
I would like, kind of like Emerald Planet, I'd like it to go all over the nation, all over the world, to get the information out, be it radio, video, but just being on a platform where more people can engage.
Well, this is Leonard, EnviroBro Robertson. He's the host of the Green and Sexy radio show, WERA 96.7 FM, and talking about the environment, how we can protect our communities as we look around the globe to create an Emerald Planet.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation.
You're resigning.
Why? You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bagging lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look for those 1,000 best practices, technology, service, and products as we move around the globe. And as we look for those 1,000 best practices in many different countries, is how we're going to be able to actually to enhance the quality of life, not only the day-to-day living of 2 billion new people that will be on the planet by 2050, but also to enhance the quality of life. And the gentleman sitting right beside me is very active, has been his whole life about all that. This is Leonard. He goes by EnviroBro Robertson. Very lovely name, I got that. And then he's the co-host of what's called the Green and Sexy Radio Show, WERA 96.7 FM radio, and that's in Arlington. And you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
And we're glad.
Having so much fun. You know, it's crazy.
Well, you were recommended, by a very dear friend to both of us, and he was telling me about this, and I said, this is actually a fantastic idea. We need to have these guys come on here and talk about what they're doing. But the theme for this particular show is a waste is a terrible thing to mind, M-I-N-D.
That's right.
And I'm going to ask you about the other kind of mind in a minute. Tell me what that means, and why did you actually have that as the theme for this show?
As everything I do, there's a backstory to it. Well, the motto for the United Negro College Fund is a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Right.
Well, I was doing a program for historically black colleges to get them engaged in the environment.
And I want you to know I was on the board at Norfolk State University at one time.
Excellent.
So.
Well, I wanted to get them engaged, but I wanted to get with a model that they were comfortable with. So I just twisted the words around, made it a little bit of humor, and said, okay, what you might call a waste could be a treasure to somebody else.
Exactly.
So I started with hats and the banners and stuff saying a waste is a terrible thing to mind. And it kind of caught on. I thought it'd just die after a couple of months, but this was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, and we're still using it. And I just loved it. When you sent it to me, I thought sure it was going to be M-I-N-E to mine. And then as we were talking, you said, yeah, I'm very much into green mining, which Emerald Planet is all about that with Chuck Vollmer of Jobonomics. I'm going to introduce the two of you. But let's say we had a waste is a terrible thing not to mine. How would you explain what you're doing as far as the green mining in particularly urban areas?
Well, I used to work at landfills. And I knew what went into landfills. It's a lot of good stuff in there. Ferrous materials, scrap, aluminum, copper, valuable. We once got rid of 2 million cans of Coca-Cola when I worked in a landfill. Imagine how much aluminum is in there. And people, when there was an estate sale or there was a death, people just threw everything away. Well, these landfills have all kind of valuable resources.
Right.
So I think years ago I talked with what's called the Bureau of Mines to mine our landfill reclamation, and it kind of didn't get funded. But I think that's a great idea. We could take the coal miners, because fossil fuels are slowly getting out, and we could put them to work mining landfills. It takes the same technology, the same safety, the same standards, and it puts people to work, and there's resources at the end. So,
and the thing about that too, as far as the resources in there, my understanding is it takes 90% less energy to reprocess the aluminum, the steel, the plastic, whatever it is that's in the landfill, than if you originally take the raw ore or you're taking the hydrocarbons to produce the plastics or whatever. So if you can reduce and have a natural resource that takes 90% less energy, that's a huge savings not only for the company making more money, but also the impact on the environment.
Well, you know, and you and I agree that it's a great idea, but there's an expression that goes, everybody likes a better mousetrap except the mouse. And so there's a mouse somewhere that doesn't want landfill mining to happen because they're probably a commodities trader.
Right.
Once they can get their hands on it, or once it becomes a business model, then it should be done. I'm surprised it hasn't been done yet. I mean, I'm very intrigued with that because the term now is urban mining.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what our dear friend Chuck Vollmer, who works with us, actually is an advisor on our board, really has the very advanced equipment to do all that. And it can actually cast millions of dollars to local communities, plus create, some of these facilities could create 500 to 1,000 full-time jobs. That's a lot of work, and it's in the inner city near where all these landfills are. So
plus energy recovery too, because when you dig, the decomposition of the organics in there, so that's energy recovery as well.
Yeah, and that a lot of that's going on. The methane's being taken off, but this whole thing of actually mining for the minerals and the materials in there really is a fantastic idea, and I'm glad you're thinking that way. We'll make sure you get introduced. Now, looking at this, I've left this slide up here. You have a colleague in arms that works with you, very intelligent, beautiful lady. Tell us who she is, and we'll be introducing her at a later time, but just tell us what we're seeing here at the radio station.
That's my partner in the environment. That's Miriam Gennari. She's known as the StyrofoamMom. She, the going joke is in the green and sexy thing, she's green and I'm sexy. That's how it works.
Now that is a joke, okay, but that's all right.
She's an activist. I was impressed by her work because she has a passion about eliminating styrofoam as a single use. She wants it either recycled or come up with a better alternative. And she's very passionate, and she's very well vested in Arlington where the radio station was at. And people said, you two need to get together. When we got together, it was so much electricity, it almost ran the radio show by itself. And we decided, hey, let's partner up. EnviroBro and the StyrofoamMom. And she's great. She, as you'll see when you interview her, that she has a lot to say, a lot of good stuff.
Well, I want to know who this guy is. Now, this is really, it's got to be a superhero. I don't know who this is, but tell us about where this superhero came from and how you're using it as far as the green and sexy, but also when you go to schools, you're going out to PTAs and Rotary clubs and all these other places to speak about not only the radio show, but what people can do at the local level. We're going to talk about that in greater depth to really impact the environment, but also to benefit their own communities, their families, and the areas immediately surrounding their homes.
Well, that's what I look like when I'm suited up.
I like it.
But what happened, I used to do a show called Going Green with EnviroBro when I was in Sacramento, and I had a fan club in Boston. And they put together.
This was in California, but there was a fan club following you in Boston.
Because it streamed on the internet. So I had a fan club in Boston, and they hired an illustrator, and they said, "What do you think EnviroBro should look like?" Send them my picture, and they came back with that, gave me the rights to it, and that became my logo, EnviroBro.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love it. I tell you. Well, the franchises for all these superheroes are making hundreds of millions of dollars. You need to somehow parlay that into underwriting the green and sexy.
Well, I've trademarked it and everything. I need to talk to DC or Marvel. Maybe they can do a show.
There you go. You're only one person away. Now, looking at these activists, sports figures, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, most people will know. How have you been able to get these people involved? I know you're in California. You're in the middle of the look good and feel good crowd, but these people are really dedicated to the environment. How did you link them to the work you were doing there with the government, but now that's translating over to green and sexy?
Well, because they recognize passion. Whenever I would be somewhere, either I'm speaking or they're speaking, or I ask a question, I do everything with passion. And they recognize the passion. What I didn't have in knowledge, what I didn't have in funding, I did with passion. And so Van Jones recognized that. Arnold Schwarzenegger liked my program when I was at Tamco Steel, so he was passionate. I met Jesse Jackson. He was doing the environmental justice movement.
Right.
So as they saw that I was passionate about it, and I was an appointee, it doesn't hurt being an appointee of the governor either.
Right. No, that's absolutely not. And the whole thing about him, that he really is passionate about the environment. Now, he was a Republican governor.
Yes.
But he was really an activist as far as the environment was concerned. So what was in his ethos Maybe it's Austrian, because the Austrians are very passionate about. What did you learn about him over those years that he was governor that really allowed the two of you to work together very nicely in order to enhance and expand environmental quality in California?
Well, we shared the passion for the environment, but the environomics thing, taking the environment and having an economic factor. How can we protect the environment, and how can there be economics? How can we create jobs and keep jobs and attract jobs? So it's not too many people. As far as being a Republican, most environmental laws were put together by the Republicans.
Yeah, and
Richard
that's
Nixon
what's
did the
amazing.
US EPA.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and the whole thing about this is that's really true, because you reduce the cost, you reduce the burden on health care and all these other things, and all that translates into dollars.
Yeah. Well, Richard Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. I think Ronald Reagan signed the Clean Air Act. Jerry Ford signed the Clean Water Act. Arnold Schwarzenegger created California's climate change policy. So it had a business sense to it, and that's what turns the Republicans on.
Yeah, and the whole thing too, and as we've talked about with your Green and Sexy and with Emerald Planet, it's this intersect between the environment and the economy. It's most important.
That's right.
And that's what's going to drive both of these, and at the same time to create more green jobs, because that's where the jobs are going to be. We're not going back to just mining massive amount of fossil fuels and all that, but the green jobs are very real. Now, looking at this photograph here, as far as the radio station, tell us a little bit about your reach, about some of the people that you have that come on, that you interview, and then about your engagement in the local community, because you're doing all of these things.
Yes.
And it's amazing how much is actually going on through this radio station and the outreach that you're doing.
Well, what we try to do is have the local movers, shakers, decision makers, and shot callers come on, for Arlington, because we're an Arlington station.
Right.
And Miriam's job is to get the Arlington people, tell the world about Arlington. My job is to find the outside people and get that information and tell it to Arlington, so that inside out, outside in works out very, very well. I mean, I've had my shows in Sacramento, I've had the Cal EPA's secretaries on there, I've had the Air Resources Board people, I've had governor appointees, I've had senators, and I'm hoping to get that done as well in Arlington too. Would try to get Barack Obama to come on the show, but he was a little bit busy this last year or so.
Yeah. Well, I think now you'll have a chance to get him on. Particularly, he's doing his book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be very environment. But anyway, looking at this, and we're just about running out of time, tell us about, this is a major passion that you have. This goes back to the landfills, but looking at just the plastics aspect of this. Tell us a little bit about that. Then I have one question, and then we'll be done. We got about 45 seconds.
Okay, well, for Lent, I decided to give up plastic bags and plastic bottles. So anybody give up chocolate, give up meat, stuff like that. Try giving up plastic water bottles and try giving up plastic bags. That's very difficult.
Right.
And I sit on the Catholic Care for Creation Committee, so I figured that was a very noble cause to give that up, and it makes a big difference.
Now, looking at everything that you're doing, looking at Green and Sexy, but just going beyond that, what do you see as far as the total outreach over the next 5, 10, 15 years into the community and around the world? What do you see?
Well, we started in Arlington, and we're influencing DC. I'd like it to be to a point where we can actually influence policy. I mean, we're just a couple of blocks away from Washington, D.C. We're
just across the river.
That's right. We're near Alexandria, Virginia. Again, I'd like it to go nationally, where we influence capitals in other states, other countries, and the ideas that we do. I want to share ideas and be an exchange and a conduit.
Well, this is an EnviroBro Robertson, a Green and Sexy radio show. Thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
Okay.
so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis looking for what we call the best of the best. The solutions, the 1,000 best practices, the things that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet of 9 billion people, how are we going to be able to provide the food, the fuel, the fiber, all the basic infrastructure, including roads and ports and airports, education, healthcare, all of these things are wonderfully, and some people would say terribly important as we just continue to populate the earth. And I have someone sitting right beside me who's actually been thinking about these things but doing great activism as far as taking care of the community. This is Miriam Gennari. She is called the StyrofoamMom. I'm going to repeat that again, StyrofoamMom. I love that title. She's a co-host of the Green and Sexy radio show, WERA 96.7 FM. This is in Arlington. And thank you for being on the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you so much for the work you do, Dr. Hancock.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and you can call me Sam. But we have your logos right behind us. Tell us a little bit about this, the Green and Sexy radio show. Who came up with the idea for that? And then how does that really translate to the public that they feel engaged and they want to be a part of what it is that you have to share and the way that you have to share it through this very exciting radio program you're doing?
Well, in the Green and Sexy radio show, I am the green one. So my name, StyrofoamMom, it's a cute little name. People often ask what it means, but styrofoam doesn't go away, as I know you know, and so neither will I. So nagging, if you were caught chewing with your mouth open, I don't care how old your mother is, say, Sam, you knock that off. And I often have to step in sometimes. Aside from being an activist, sometimes you just have to be a leader. And so I've been an outspoken voice about different issues. Sometimes there's not a lot of people listening, and then after a while the conversation gets started and you can get more people on board. And that's what the Green and Sexy radio show does. Gets you laughing, but at the same time it starts you thinking.
Well, the whole thing about this too, as far as the media and outreach, many people worry about numbers and all that. And my whole attitude is if you just reach one, and they really get activated, they want to be involved, and they go out and they impact, all they need to find is one. And when you start doing that, it's just like molecules of the atom. They come bumping into each other, and all of a sudden you have fusion, you have energy, you have power. Now, how does that relate, again, to Green and Sexy, where you're taking all these citizens, engaging them, getting them involved, and allowing that power then to bring change into Arlington? And where is Arlington, by the way?
Arlington is a stone's throw from Washington, D.C., and we house the EPA and the Pentagon.
That's the Environmental Protection Agency.
Yes, as it still exists, right, in Crystal City, Virginia. And the thing about the area is that there are a lot of people that are enlightened, but at the same time, there still remains, as you know, a good deal of debate about how and should we spend time and energy to protect the environment. I got my start by focusing my attention on children. I had my own children. I can't say that I was the best consumer. I think I made a lot of mistakes, and maybe those mistakes spilled into my children. When I recognized that I could do things better, I just assumed everybody would get on board. Just made such good sense. This is such logic. You know, don't drive your children to school, make sure they walk, shut off the lights when you leave the room, these basic things that you
recycle, all those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But as it turns out, everybody wants to debate, and so sometimes it takes getting people to talk and kind of come at things at different directions. And I certainly believe that if you educate young people, it's one thing to educate one person like me and expect things to germinate, but when you educate a young person, you really are changing the world.
Yeah. Now, looking at eliminating styrofoam as far as food services is concerned, what kind of forms does this take? How do you substitute whatever it is that's going to be better for the environment, better for the economy, better for human beings than styrofoam, so that, America's whole thing is, if I give up something, then I need to have something that's going to keep my creature comforts. So how do we do that? How do we convince people that giving this up is a good thing, but at the same time, you're really not going to have to suffer, not too much, and there are alternatives? And what are some of those alternatives?
Well, the first thing is proper use. That's all we really need to understand. If you understand that something has nowhere to go after you use it, you're a lot more careful about using it. So styrofoam is an EPS, expanded polystyrene, which is a multiple molecule of styrene. Once it's put together and it has that additional air and the molecules are stuck together, it's very hard to break down. However, there are certain circumstances where it does break down with heat. Also, those molecules open up room for maybe some absorption of materials like marine, mammal, and fowl will consume EPS in the wildlife because it tastes like food. So that is kind of one of those issues where you rely upon education for people to understand and use things properly. In terms of alternatives, I remember that the school board superintendent, when I was working to get it eliminated from Arlington Public Schools, and he said to me, "Can you give me another alternative?" I was wearing a t-shirt at the time, and I pulled out my shirt and said, "Just put your apples right here." We didn't have it before. It was a very simple, convenient mistake where, and this happens a lot in our country and around the world, you come up with an idea, but you don't look down the road and you don't think about the long-term effects of your decisions. And now we've come to realize that we really need to address it.
Now, I believe this something was done by a school child, if we can bring this back up. But tell us what we're looking at here, and why is this a teachable moment as far as this piece of artwork?
Well, this artwork is actually part of a small, short...
Let's see if we can get this slide back up. There we go.
Documentary. It's called StyroMan, and it talks just about that, a simple mistake in a complex problem. It shares with you the lifespan of polystyrene. If it doesn't end up in a landfill, where the EPA does say that landfills, mining for landfills, well, polystyrene takes up 25% of our landfills.
25%. That's a huge amount of land. Yeah.
However, in municipalities that want to do the waste to energy, well, it's incinerated, combustion technology. But for styrofoam, it takes up so much room in those trucks, it costs a lot of money to get there, and there's no BTU value. All there is negative effects in terms of off-gassing, and that causes companies a lot of money. So it gums up the system whichever way it goes. The only thing that you can do with it is recycle it. And what concerns me sometimes when people talk about removing polystyrene from the waste stream altogether is you have to think about what alternatives are being provided and whether or not those are recyclable. So it's about education, and it's also what you love. It's about innovation.
Yeah, and the whole thing of innovation, but it goes back to sustainability,
yes,
resilience, and all these other things too. It's really important. I know that you go out into the communities, you do a lot of speaking, you go before school groups and civil society groups and others. Tell us about some of the people that you go out and you interact with, not just through the radio show, but actually into the community. And what's some of the reactions that you're getting when you're out there, you're giving your best passionate plea, and somebody comes up and they ask a question, they make a statement. Tell us a little bit about this interaction.
Okay, well, the best interaction that you ever have is when somebody comes up to me and they're like, and I've never met them before, and they say, I just want you to know, I went to my favorite coffee shop and I convinced them to stop using styrofoam. And I'm so excited because that is a ripple effect. All you need is one person to kind of stand up in line and everybody else starts to ask questions. More recently, I've been focused on trying to get people to come up with ideas on how to recycle. You know, small-scale manufacturing is a great opportunity in our country right now. Recycling offers a lot of opportunity for jobs, green jobs. And so if you can take the innovators out there, the people who are building equipment, I had this vision when they had the earthquake in Haiti that we would create a styrofoam recycling machine that would make prosthetics. You may not know it, but many products are made out of EPS. Correct. And my partner of the Green and Sexy radio show was out in California, and he initiated a recycling project that had not only the municipalities involved, but also business that was taking that material for free, a free commodity, and transferring it into something that could be sold. I'd like to see that be a national program, so that's what I talk about.
Now, this is something that you have, maybe this kind of looks like you, but anyway, this is part of this is the white and sexy part of this whole thing, but I'm not going away. Now, this is something you've mentioned several times already in our conversation. Tell us about that, why you're using this logo here, and how does that actually translate to the school children and to the community as far as this is something that's serious and we need to think about it.
Well,
not just think about it, do something about it.
Moms persist. I mean, you know, we've been on this planet. I like to think about going to the Science Museum in DC, and you look at the period of time that they mark human beings on the planet. And so we've been here such a short time, but we've had such a great impact. I believe that that logo represents persistence. You know, styrofoam will persist, and I will assist in resolving this problem. It does not have to be as difficult as people make it to be. Once that's done, StyrofoamMom's not going away. There are other issues that need to be addressed. So I think StyrofoamMom is part of a brand that a lot of concerned people want to say, okay, what do we address now, Mom? You know,
and when that's really my last question is, where do you see all this going? The Green and Sexy radio show, but also this whole thing, the persona of the Styrofoam Mom, where is it going to be over the next, say, 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I know that within the next few months, we'll have the trailer completed for the Styrofoam Mom documentary. In the meantime, you can go online and see Styro Man. That will be edited, and then we'll start to do segments on the Styrofoam Mom movie. When that movie's complete, I assume it'll circle the planet and everyone will get the message, we'll resolve that problem, and then on to the next documentary.
Well, tell us about we have just a few more minutes. Tell us about, quickly, about 20 minutes, about the movie, and where do you think that's going to go?
Well, you know,
what's the gist of it?
The gist of the movie is basically education and understanding about solving the problem and bringing the stakeholders together. So you need the community on board, voting with their dollars. You need the government, municipalities willing to bring the different organizations together and say, you know what, I'm going to purchase products made from recycled EPS. And then finally, you need business. You need to spur business. And hopefully this interview will help do that.
Oh, we're all about that. This is Miriam Gennari. She is the Styrofoam Mom. I love that name.
Thank you.
Co-host for the Green and Sexy radio show on WERA 96.7 FM radio. And this is all about who is the Styrofoam Mom as we create the Emerald Planet.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education. I dare you to be somebody important. Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star. I dare you to stand up here. To call the shots. To be a role model.
An inspiration.
An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you. Have a career that really means something? Then do it. I dare you.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, products, and the people, of course, that are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet and the Emerald Planet TV. And so we're coming to you with a list of solutions on a week-to-week basis so that we can actually bring problem solving to taking care of the planet, taking care of humankind, and all living beings on the planet. And I have someone sitting right beside me who's actually very actively involved in that in the Washington, D.C., Arlington area. This is Miriam Gennari. She is the StyrofoamMom, co-host of the Green and Sexy radio show, WERA 96.7 FM radio. And we're really talking about how we're reaching into the communities and how we're bringing change to people and all that. So looking at what it is that you're doing is, what is the Green and Sexy radio show, and how do you think that really impacts in the community on a week-to-week basis? And then how many times do you actually have the radio show in a week?
People are so excited about this radio show. It's funny, it's lighthearted, and yet at the same time, it also encourages people to think about their behavior without necessarily guilting them into it. I had the pleasure of being invited to join the show. The main host of the show, Leonard Robertson, and I met each other at Arlington Independent Media. I do a weekly show called The Sustainable Scoop, where I try to, encourage people to talk about different issues, people who don't otherwise get press doing things. One of my guests was a guest that you've had on the show, Joe Pelton. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he says hi, Sam.
I tell you, Joe, he's a prince of a gentleman.
He is.
And just amazing. And I think he's over 40 books now that he's written and published.
He is. He's remarkable. And he doesn't need any coaching at all. He knows how to do an interview.
Well, he knows how to do many, many things. He is really a great guy. But tell us about this Sustainable Scoop, and then I'm going to go back to the radio show. But let's do the Sustainable Scoop. Tell us about that.
That's, years ago, I ran for office. It was kind of crazy. My mother-in-law told me once, she's the original Styrofoam mom, but she said, Miriam, if things bother you that much, you need to just run. Just do it once. Well, to make a long story short, I didn't win, but on October 28th, the year I ran, there was an announcement by the school system, and they announced the Energy, Environment, and Recycling Initiative, which was basically my entire platform. So though I only got 24% of the vote, Arlington Public Schools adopted everything that I believed, and that was an honor. And
that means you won 100% of the vote.
Without being in committee, right?
And have to attend all those boring meetings either.
Exactly. But what it also helped me to realize how important the work that you do, and that people need the opportunity to be in front of media. And sometimes sometimes they're not the most salacious story. Sometimes it's that day in and day out kind of reminder. And so if you have the personality to bring that out there, you do. I've had wonderful interviews for people who are doing great work in sustainability. And it just so happened that I was at the station and Leonard and I crossed paths. And I think he likes to say it was electric, it was kinetic. We were like atoms moving around. And the more we spoke, and the more, I remember, I think the first time I met my host of the Green and Sexy radio show, EnviroBro, he spoke for a few minutes, and then I said, you know what? I will carry your briefcase into the White House. I can get us in, you do the talking.
Yeah, there you go. But looking at this photograph here, this is in the radio station. Tell us a little bit about the dynamics of being on radio and why you think that's such a fantastic medium to reach out to the public, to bring information, but also to create action.
Well, I think that what's wonderful about radio is it's the few place where you can still capture someone's attention, where they shouldn't be texting, where they're not watching TV, there are few distractions, and you know, I grew up listening to radio shows I enjoyed so much. NPR, Diane Reeves, I really appreciate the knowledge and experience that I got when I was painting a fence, listening to, and actually your show is another example of a show that I'm learning something, so I can be multitasking. So radio's unique in that way. The fact that we air at 7 p.m. and also at 9 a.m. on Fridays, and of course, now that we can podcast and you can listen at any time, gives the guests that we bring on the kind of exposure that is worth the investment to come out to the studio and be on the air for an hour.
Yeah, and going back to this Sustainable Scoop, this is actually a TV show that you're doing. Actually.
Well, the Arlington Weekly News is the longest running independent weekly news show in the country. There's been multiple awards, and a good friend of mine, Rich Masabny, who has been on TV quite a bit, he invited me to come to the station one time. He joked around that said I might steal his job, and I did. I loved Rich.
That's absolutely fantastic. But going on this, reaching out as far as the mission, the vision, and all these things, how do you get that across to people? What kind of energy do you have? And then your co-host, as we talked about with Leonard and EnviroBro, how do you really get that over to people and allow them to really feel it so that it becomes theirs? It's not just out there somewhere.
So I think one of the big challenges is I think all people think that they have to be a certain character to be environmentally sustainable or to be concerned about the environment. And I think what Leonard and I managed to do is laugh at ourselves a little and recognize that, you know, he's a meat eater. I tried to be a vegan. We're both giving up plastic bags for Lent. We make it real for people so they understand that we're not perfect. But I do believe, and this is back to the styrofoam issue, I do believe that if somebody takes one step across that line and they really become educated about an issue, then they become advocates, and that's how things start to germinate and grow. So we just need to change just a little bit.
Yeah, just reach out to one.
Yeah.
But being a top radio personality, I mean, it really is a big deal. It's in a local community, but yet it expands way beyond that. Of course, now with podcasting and the internet, it can be anywhere on the planet at any time. And then it's archived out there, so it has the multiple leverages as far as, you know, reinvigorating people, re-educating people. But looking at that and the radio and becoming this kind of personality, how then can people feel like they're absorbing some of that, so they really become part of what now is becoming a movement?
Well, first of all, I think there's a tremendous amount of responsibility to be in media, radio or TV. People are listening to you, and sometimes people still hear it and they believe it. So I think that that's the responsibility. I think giving both sides of the argument is critically important. And I think that more, especially young people with their technology, have the opportunity to be involved, to be informed. One of the things I recently spoke at a convention of young people in Crystal City. There were 500 youth there. They were playing the mock parts of the judicial system or the Senate or the House, and surrounded by these young people and their ideas, they were like, what can we do in our community to change the world? And I just kept looking at them. Run for office or start a show. Find your voice. Create panel discussions, get discussions going, because one side of the perspective is never the whole story. So I think that's a responsibility that we have. And my views have evolved through the years, the more people I've talked to and the more I've learned.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it, they talk about the flip-floppers, you know, the people that run for office and they change their mind and all that. And my whole attitude has been, if they're not changing their mind, not growing and maturing over these years, what are they doing?
They're not listening.
I mean, it's not about flip-floppers. The fact is that you mature, you evolve, you gain more information, and hopefully more wisdom.
Right.
And it seems like that's what you've really gotten from this process, is that you've gained this wisdom that you can share for others. So two parts of this. One is about the new green jobs, and we have some of this in the backdrop here, and let you talk about that. But also, how do you get across to people who think they already know everything about the environment, or they think that nothing's really happening as far as the environment, in other words, no climate change and those kinds of things. So how do you have, where you combine these new green jobs, because that's where we're going, with that people really need to be aware and be open to learn, mature, grow, and gain wisdom as far as the environment and also climate change?
Well, every politician that I've ever tried to talk to, even lecture, has said to me, show me the money. If it makes money, if it doesn't cost us anything, we'll do it. So the first thing we have to do is stop letting people externalize the costs. Down the road, somebody always pays the price. I have a saying that bad air floats. So you cannot just assume that what you're doing in your backyard is not going to affect someone else. Communication and the internet and also social media has created opportunities for people who wouldn't otherwise talk to talk. Now, I will say that there was a time when the tin market didn't exist. There was a time when people didn't recycle cardboard. What we need to do is find those commodities that exist and close the loop. Doesn't mean we have to ban them. What it means is proper use. So quickly we bring things to market, but I think businesses need to be responsible, stewardship responsibility, that they know where those products are going to end up long term.
Well, see, this is the European Union. You cannot invent and produce and sell a product because in the barcode it tells you the end life of that particular product. And we don't do that in the United States, and we definitely need to be doing that because it's already in the plan, is that when the vehicle or the cardboard, as you're talking about, the milk carton, whatever that is, in that barcode, it tells you this is where this is going to go and how it's going to be taken care of.
Well, I hear
that's
from
the way
people
it needs to be all the time.
Though, they say to me, Miriam, you'd be so much happier if you lived in Switzerland. You'd be so, oh, they do that in France. You should do that. But I think that we as Americans have a responsibility to make those changes here and set an example for developing countries so they don't make the same mistakes.
Well, absolutely. And the whole thing about it is the green and sexy. I love this name. It's really catchy and all that. Where you see it going over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, 5, 10, 15 years, I think, will be national sponsors for sustainable brands and also for the Green Festival. I believe that we'll be hosting the Environmental Film Festival, and who knows, maybe I can get Leonard back into the White House, or I'm sorry, into the State House, maybe the White House too.
This is Miriam Gennari. She is the co-host of the Green and Sexy radio show, the StyrofoamMom.
Thank you
so
much.
Being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great job done, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing, the outstanding work you're doing.
And I appreciate you.
And the way you engage the community. This is very important, and thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.